Happy, beautiful day. It is Pete Cohen. It is the Pete Cohen podcast. And you join me for a brand new series of 4 podcasts all about positive achievement. Get ready for today's podcast, which is called What Man Can Be, He Must Be. I'll see you after the theme tune. The big question is, how are some people in the world today creating the results they want with their health, wealth, and happiness? What exactly are these people doing? This podcast will give you the answers and inspire you to live the life that you want today. Happy, beautiful day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. Super excited, super fired up as I always am around giving this knowledge and wisdom and tools and techniques to basically help you close that gap between where you are and where you want to be. I think we have so many things in common. And one of them is we're in the story making business every single day. We're making a story of our life. We're also in the legacy making business. Whether you like it or not, every single day, you are creating a legacy of your life. So what I want to do over the next few weeks is really delve into the subject of positive achievement and really help you look at things differently, but then more importantly, help you to take action. Today's podcast is brought to you by my brand new assessment. The assessment is really designed to help you look at goals that you have in your life and really the areas that you need to focus on and how much clarity you actually have around your goals. And it's absolutely free. Go to discover.petecohen.com, discover.petecohen.com, and go through that process. And at the end, it will really give you an overview of where you are right now. You know, one of the things I often say to people is, imagine if you went into a betting office and you said, listen, I want to put some odds on me achieving some goals. And I don't know what those goals might be. It might be the goal of me losing 50 pounds this year, the goal of me writing this book that I've always wanted to write, the goal of saving up enough money so I can travel around the world, the goal of, you could just think of any goal, because chances are with most of the goals that you have in your life, they're probably things that you've done, tried to do it before, or you've done something similar before, and you've got form, you've got history. And if the bookmaker could see it, and then go, well, listen, I'm really sorry, but looking at your form, the amount of times you've said you're going to do something and not done it, the amount of times you've started something and haven't completed it, I'm really sorry. The odds are massively stacked up against you. Let's say 100 to 1. I want to help you put those odds back in your favor. Why do I want to do that? Because I know that we have an inbuilt need to achieve. And that's what I want to look at. So today, we're going to look at what man can be, he must be. Those are not words that I came up with. They're very famous words that attach to a man called Abraham Maslow. Maslow is one of the forefathers of, I suppose, psychology, and incredible man. And I actually remember studying him for the first time probably in 1991. So that was a very long time ago when I was doing my degree in sports science. And we did a whole area on psychology and sociology and looking about human beings and what human beings want. And what we seem to happen, and you might have heard of this hierarchy of needs, which is like a pyramid. At the base of the pyramid is our most important needs, which basically is food and shelter. And then above that, it's about having a sense of belonging, being a part of a community. And then right at the top of that pyramid is what he would call self-actualizing. What man can be, he must be. And he said that that's not like a nice to have. It's a need. It's an impulse within every single one of us that we are destined. We have a drive. We have a pulse that is beating, that it's almost like there is a calling of something that we are here to do. And I know that might sound really fuzzy to a lot of people, and I know lots of people struggle with this whole concept of what's the meaning of my life. And I really want to delve into that a little bit, because I personally think that the meaning of your life is the meaning that you decide to give it. And I know there's probably a rebel in you that if you're told what to do, you probably won't want to do the things that you're told what to do, but you might do them for a bit. But that the rebel eventually comes up and says, I'm not doing that. I want to do this my way. And I think there is no better way in life than you to find out what really makes you come alive. What is it that you really need to do? And I think that if we're looking at a universal thing that we're all here to do, we're all here to live, to grow, to expand. We are at our best when our senses are stimulated. And I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, the whole concept that the man who won the Nobel Prize in 1937 for his thing called Syntropy, which is every living cell lives for one reason: to grow, to expand, to live life fully. And that's what we have the ability to do. It's not always the easiest thing to do because of the forces that seem to reside in every single human being. A force of, some people might call it good, some people might call it evil, some people might call it positive or negative. And I explain this in so many different ways, from me just experiencing the amount of washing up that is out there that needs to be put away, and the dishwasher that is also full. We had a party yesterday for a couple of our friends because we weren't able to go to their wedding. So what's really interesting, and one of them is called Phil, and we were talking yesterday about philosophy. And I came up with this idea. I said, Phil, because he's a coach like me, and I said, why don't you start something called philosophy, where you're teaching people about philosophy and about them having their own philosophy. Because if we think about what's the greatest achievement of your life, what will be some of the greatest achievements of your life? What we see for many people who are very, very happy is they have their own philosophy. I'll stop saying that. They have their own philosophy, and that's what they practice. Philosophy is the lover of wisdom, to love to learn, to love to grow. And then when we look at the word achievement and we think, well, okay, what actually is achievement? Well, if you love looking up words and where they come from, basically it means the act of completing something, and it comes from Middle French, and it's a finishing, it's an accomplishment. Human beings love the feeling of accomplishment, of finishing something. Now, when I look at the washing up, I immediately look at it and I will probably say, oh, that needs to be done. And then my body then produces emotion that is in connection with that thought. And I can tell you, it wasn't a happy thought. I could have thought something different, but the thought produced a feeling, and the feeling was uncomfortable, like some sort of stress and pain. And if you looked inside my body and my mind, you'd see that pain receptors were probably switched on, that I am attaching pain to actually spending 5 minutes, 10 minutes, clearing everything away and putting everything away. Isn't that fascinating? Now, you're not alone. You probably had that this morning getting out of bed, where you immediately thought, oh, it's time to get up. And then you thought, oh, no, you stay here. And then it's better here. And then you attach pain to getting out of bed. And because it may be colder and there are things you've got to do, it's better to stay where you are. But the most fascinating thing about all of this is that when we complete something, what is that feeling like? And that's what I'd love all of us to do, is to recognize that you're not alone. You are not alone. The world is full of people right now that are sat down somewhere, and you know what? Because they don't feel like doing something, they will not do it because they don't feel like it. So what's going on inside them? I mentioned this on a previous podcast about studies that were done on people that don't like maths. And I would definitely be one of these people. And if you listen to this in America, I think you say maths a bit differently, but we say maths in Great Britain. I mean, I don't even have the basic maths qualification, which was an O-level in 1986, 85, actually. I failed it. I took it 5 or 6 times. Even with the thought of maths, if you looked on what was going on inside my brain, basically, you would see alarm bells going off, fire engines. But some people, the complete opposite. When they think of maths, all of a sudden they get excited. Isn't that crazy? How does that happen? Well, ultimately, It's a choice. And over the next 4 podcasts, we are going to delve into this subject that will help you overcome yourself, for you to get done what you need to do, even if you don't feel like it, to be able to play the game of life maybe a little bit better than you currently play it, because maybe your philosophy of life could be that my life is a game and I need to be in the game. And how do I want the game to end? Which, as we've spoken about this before. In fact, some of you know that I posted a video on Facebook. It's also on LinkedIn. It's also on Instagram. And to say it went viral, I suppose, what does that really mean? Well, I mean, it's had over 30,000 people watching it. So I suppose it's big. And in that video, I really explained in detail. I revealed some really deep personal stuff about myself. And I also talked in a bit more detail about what happened to my wife. Because, and I was in a graveyard, in a cemetery, talking about, the legacy of our life. What do we want it to be? Let's not wait until we're dead for our greatest achievements to come to life. And I really encourage you to take some time out and ask yourself some big questions. They're important questions. And this is the big question. What will be your greatest achievement in your life? Take some time, get a pen and paper. If you're driving, obviously don't do it now, but if you can, just get out a pen and paper and just write the question down. What will be my greatest achievement? And then maybe what will be lots of little great achievements every single day? I mean, as a coach, when you're coaching someone, and of all of the world champions that I've worked with in the past in sport, we have to become obsessed with what's the biggest achievement. And then we break it down to, well, what do we need to do now? What is it that we're working on for the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks? And then we recognize all of the little achievement things that need to be done, the achievement habit. And I'd love all of us to start getting high, because when I finish this podcast, I will go into the kitchen. And now I'm thinking differently about it, because I'm talking about it, because all I can see is everything put away. Everything put away, so it all looks tidy. So when my wife comes downstairs, she can see it's been done. It puts a big smile on her face, and I've got a big smile on my face, and I've created a feeling of accomplishment, because we are goal-orientated creatures. You're only here because someone else had a goal, and then someone else had a goal, and we are what the Greeks called teleological. We have to work towards things, and unfortunately, it's something I wrote down this morning, that what happens to most of us is, look, we either set goals that we don't really connect to emotionally, or we set goals that really we're not that interested in. We don't believe, there's a part of us, the evil part of us, however you want it, the negative part of us, that every time we set a goal is going, look, don't do that. Just stay where you are. There's no point. You've said this 1,000 times. You don't do what you say you're going to do. And perhaps that could become one of your biggest achievements. You become the person. You do what you say you're going to do. You say you're going to do something. I posted something the other day on LinkedIn about leadership. Leadership is an area that I'm fascinated with. I'm working with leaders, helping them to become better leaders, helping leaders to become the person that they want to follow. And I posted and I challenged people to become the person that does what they say they're going to do. And I posted something about this, and then someone talked to me made a comment about the army, that, when people are in the army, that there's a different type of leadership. And I know that because I've been fortunate enough to work with people in the forces. And one of the things you see is that when people leave and then leave the armed forces and then go and work in organizations, that they often struggle, because a lot of people, their words are not their bonds. So a lot of people say, yeah, I'll do that. And they don't do it. Yeah, I'll call you at that time. But it never happens. And a lot of people from that background really struggle, because you can't do that when you're in the British Army, or any army really for that matter. If things are going to function properly, people need to do what they say they're going to do. And if you don't do what you say you're going to do, there's a part of your brain that remembers every single time. And if you don't believe me, tell a child that you're going to do something, and they will remember. You might forget. Just imagine what the greatest achievements of your life could be. So if we think about it from a grandiose exiting of life, what would you like the greatest achievement of your life to be? Would it be that you gave loads of love, you gave loads of joy, you gave your best self to the world, people remembered you, there were certain things you left behind? Like for me, I'm going to leave behind thousands of podcasts, lots of books, lots of things I want to leave behind for other people to enjoy, not just physical things. I also want to just leave memories, which I think are almost physical things, if you like. What do you want the greatest achievement of your life to be? Do you want it to be that maybe, I think one of the greatest achievements of our life might be that we die in our sleep? Just, we get into our 90s, because we could all live that long, but chances are we won't, because we're so adjusted to living in a sick society. I talked about this in a presentation the other day, that 97.3% of Americans don't match up to 4 basic criteria about health. They don't eat a balanced diet. They don't do 150 minutes of exercise. They smoke. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, their body fat. Women body fat lower than 30, men body fat lower than 20. 97.3% of Americans do not match up. 50% of Americans have a chronic illness. Now you might be thinking, well, I don't live in America. Yeah, well, we follow America, especially here in Great Britain. 50% of Americans have a chronic health condition. And yet 70% of the money that goes on healthcare goes on to treating issues which are all preventable. What is going to be your biggest achievement? Now, if you want to be healthier and you want to be able to just fall asleep and not end up in hospital, and then that reminds me of what my dad used to say to me. My dad used to say, if I ever end up like this in hospital, because my dad did go to hospital quite a lot towards the end of his life, and he pointed over at someone and said, if I ever end up like that guy, please just take me out of the game. Now, unfortunately, that's a pretty emotional subject, but I have an opportunity I didn't take him out of the game, if any of you were thinking that, and my father did get worse, but didn't suffer too much, but his legacy lives on, his memory lives on. In fact, at his funeral, the amount of people that wrote to my mum, and I remember reading these letters, there was a similar theme, and the theme was that my dad had time for everyone. What man can be, he must be. What must you be? What must you be? Now, it's such a big subject, and I know a lot of people really struggle with this, but let's look at it from a different vantage point. By the way, human beings, we've been around for 200,000 years, and we've been living in civilizations for about 6,000 years. So that's not actually very long. We were designed to survive, because once upon a time, we were not kings of the jungle, and our lives were in danger. So we had to be on our guard. It wasn't about living in nice houses, watching Sky TV with a mobile phone. It literally was just about surviving. And then when we learned how to create things and live in civilizations, we became intelligent. We started to philosophize, and we realized that human beings, and this is what I find so fascinating, especially when we look at the greatest achievements, is when you look at people who are perhaps the most fulfilled in life, is that they are practicing certain virtues. And I could go so deep into this subject, and I think we'll probably do another podcast. And by the way, just going back to the maths, a study showed that when people who didn't like maths thought about maths, pain receptors in their brain lit up. But as soon as they started doing the maths task that we're being asked to do, the pain receptors turned off. The hardest thing to do is just get started. So when we look at the greatest achievements of your life, please think about it. Let us know. Contact us. As an organization, we want nothing more than to help as many people close that gap between where they are and where they want to be. And when people don't self-actualize, when people are not being who they're capable of being, basically, we suffer. I think we're all suffering needlessly in many cases because we're not being who we're capable of being. This is something else that I didn't finish what I was saying. Please excuse me, because that's a pattern of mine, but I seem to have a pretty good knack of closing the loop of things I start, is that it's not that we set a goal and an obstacle gets in the way. That does happen. But it's more that we just see a clearer path to a nearer goal. And the nearer goal sets up different emotions in our brain, and then we move towards something that gives us a quick bit of pleasure in many cases. So when we look at religions, ancient philosophies, all around the world, there are things that they all have in common. And in many cases, it's all about being a good human being. And being a good human being seems to revolve around things like wisdom, being a wise person, knowing the difference between good and bad, right and wrong, justice, standing up for people, standing up for the rights of people, being loving, courage, having the heart. That's what the word means, courage, to have the heart. And then moderation, being able to moderate our behavior, because, once we lived in civilizations, we could have excess of things. We could drink as much wine as we wanted to. Then we found things from other parts of the world, from sugar to anything. We could do it to excess. And we think that, to actualize, to become our best in whatever it is that you want to do. So for me, I want to be the best coach that I can possibly be, which means I want to build a massive community of people all around the world, people who are just practicing virtues. In our coaching community, it is about wisdom, definitely learning. And wisdom comes from age, but wisdom comes from learning. We're practicing willpower, which is another word for moderation. Definitely courage. And also practicing just getting better, mastery. And what we see with people, the greatest achievements for many people are people who practice those things. And I really encourage you to think about that. It kind of throws up for some people, but, what about my background? Is it nature? Is it nurture? I think to a certain extent, yes, of course, these things make a difference. But the biggest difference that makes the difference is having an idea of the person that you want to be and understanding more about how you work, because we're so caught up in doing sometimes that we never actually realize what's actually going on inside. And that's what I'm asking you to do. What's the greatest achievement? It might be that you're able just to look back and see what's going on inside yourself and see how you're putting things off and see how you're getting distracted, that you start something, you don't finish it. And then before you know it, you've done loads of other things you didn't actually need to do, and you didn't get done the thing that you need to get done, which then creates some stress that you don't even understand why you're feeling that stress. It's because a part of your brain is going, whoa, 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 you said you were going to do that. So the disappointment rides up, the frustration rides up. We need to get really, really good. When we say we're going to do something, we do it. And we need to get really, really good at recognizing that when that pain lights on inside our body because we're challenging ourselves to do something that we don't have the inclination to do, that wonderful feeling you're going to get of completion. We are here to complete our life. How we complete our lives is entirely up to you. I'm asking you as your friend, because one of my visions when I do these podcasts is I want you to really feel like, my God, this guy is really talking to me. Yeah, I am talking to you. You're talking to me. In fact, you could do something for me as well, if you like. Someone said this to me yesterday. Can you please review our podcast? We are now I think in the top 30, or we have been, in mental health podcasts. And the more reviews and comments and shares we get, the more we will achieve in helping people, because my goal is simple: to help you achieve, to go from where you are to where you want to be, so you feel happier, you feel healthier, you feel better about who you are, and you haven't given into all the society candy that kind of makes people go down rabbit holes, which don't bring around, I don't think, it satisfies desires in us, but it doesn't satisfy a need for us to actualize. I really appreciate you guys being here. In doing these podcasts, like I said, I really want you to feel like I am talking to you as an individual, as someone as your coach, someone in your corner who's saying, I believe in you. Let's work together over the next few weeks. Go to discover.petecohen.com. Be one of the first people in the world to go through our process that was taken months to put together. I have to give a massive shout out to a colleague of mine, Connell Platts, business psychologist, who's worked tirelessly to get this off the ground. And my good friend also, Dougie, in Scotland who's also worked tirelessly into making this into something that we can use to help people just look at where they are in their life. What are the goals that matter? What is the likelihood of them achieving them? What do they need to do so we can all fulfill our destiny, fulfillment, which is to achieve. We are here to achieve. We're here to make this world a better place. If we don't do that, well, guess what? Let's not even think about that. Let's do what needs to be done. Thank you for listening. You guys are awesome, amazing, fantastic. We'll see you for the second part of these 4 podcasts on positive achievement. Take care. Much love.